You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. I hope you all are well. So, if there's one topic that comes up a lot when you have a community of 37,000 plus active midlife women in the menopause transition, it's injuries. As many of you have experienced, injuries of all kinds can become more common once you hit menopause because as hormones decline, inflammation can rise, and your connective tissues can become more vulnerable. Hormone therapy can help, but as many of you know, it's no guarantee. So this week, we're going to talk about all of it with massage therapist and recreational athlete Tara Findlay. And she had a pretty intense entry into menopause herself when a life-threatening fibroid led to nearly a year of bleeding, multiple blood transfusions, emergency Lupron, which we've talked about before on this show, a hysterectomy, and a crash course in chemical menopause that she describes as going 150 miles an hour into a brick wall. On top of profound fatigue, brain fog, mood swings, she developed a painful right shoulder, weight gain, insomnia, and a resurgence of a brutal hormone-triggered autoimmune condition. She's been through it. Forced to rehab her own shoulder and rebuild her health, Tara dove into the research on perimenopause, collagen loss, systemic inflammation, and tendon healing, and she has begun treating clients through a perimenopause-informed lens. She explains why so many active women in their 40s and 50s suddenly find themselves dealing with things like frozen shoulder and plantar fasciitis and glute pain and stubborn tendinopathies. And of course, we talk about what to do, including mobility work, massage, eccentric exercises, which I am a huge fan of. I swear they're what keep me going, and much more. I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. There's a link to the symptoms checklist she talks about in the show notes. Speaking of show notes, head into those show notes and sign up for our first ever Feisty Fest happening right here in the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania. Some of you have reached out asking if this is just for cyclists. It is most definitely not. There will be all kinds of activities to try and learn, including pickleball, trail running, swimming, lifting, all kinds of educational sessions. It's going to be an amazing time. Sign up today and I will see you September 18th through the 20th. Thank you, as always, for the kind ratings and reviews. If you like the show, please share it with a friend. It really is the best way to keep this thing going on. And give us a follow on Feisty Menopause at Facebook and Instagram, and sign up for my free weekly Feisty 40 Plus newsletter with all the training news you can use. Very quickly, finally, quick thanks to MIDI Health for their continued support. I just had my annual follow-up call with them, and I couldn't be happier, and I know many of you feel the same because you tell me so. So thank you, MIDI, for your ongoing support. And with that, enough of me. Let's have a few words about those awesome sponsors and get on with the show. All right, Tara. Welcome to Hit Play Not Pause. I am excited for this conversation because I'm overdue for a massage therapy conversation. So I'm glad to have you here.
Oh, great. I'm so glad to be here. I'm really glad that we could reschedule and try this again.
Yeah. Sometimes life is like that. And, you know, it always works out. And here we are. Speaking of life, let's talk about life a little bit before we get into this, because you have had a journey. You know, my understanding is that you nearly lost your life to fibroids, which we've had a whole show on. And then you were thrown into chemical menopause. You had a hysterectomy. You're blindsided by what you thought was frozen shoulder, but you can talk a little bit about what you think that became. Brain fog. As a 25-year massage therapist who knows bodies inside and out, what happened? Just give us a little backstory here about your evolution in your own journey.
Yeah, and it's still evolving. So it's an ongoing journey, but it wasn't adhesive capsulitis, but it was more like what I've come
frozen
to know
shoulder.
now is more likely a cranky. Yes, sorry. Adhesive capsulitis is frozen shoulder.
Yeah.
I'll toss that back and forth. It was more likely a cranky shoulder that was cosplaying as impingement syndrome. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on in our conversation. It'll kind of become a little bit more clear, listeners. My perimenopause journey started with a fibroid that wouldn't stop bleeding. I bled
How
for
old were you?
almost a year. It was 2022, 2021, 2022. I just turned 50, so was I 46, 47?
Something.
Gosh.
Yeah, something in there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, early
'cause
enough,
this was
okay? I bled for almost a year, and I needed a hysterectomy. And in Canada, the wait list for non-emergency surgeries is pretty long. Meantime, the doctors threw everything at it. I had a Mirena IUD, so hormonally we're trying to shut it down. Birth control pills, tranexamic acid, more birth control pills. And eventually, I ran out of time waiting. More accurately, I ran out of blood. And here's the thing about women who have been medically gaslit is that we're conditioned to minimize our health issues. Put on a good face. Get on with it. And as an athlete, I don't know about you, but I suffer with a stoic face. Like, I wear that kind of with pride. I embrace the suck, and I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. I lost track of how many trips I made to the doctor, but the last time I went, I passed out on the floor and needed multiple blood transfusions, got sent to the city by ambulance, and I arrived with a hemoglobin level of 55, life-threatening 65, by the way. And in the hospital, they put me on Lupron to stop the bleeding. But what I didn't know, and what nobody really explained to me, was that Lupron would put me into temporary menopause. And chemical menopause, pardon my French, is a bitch. I am sorry to everyone who has ever had to navigate it. I'm so sorry. Chemical menopause is the hormonal equivalent of driving 150 miles an hour and hitting a brick wall. It's so on top of rebuilding my hemoglobin levels, which I do not recommend, I was suddenly in chemical menopause, which I rate about a 0 out of 10 stars. I had 3 months until my hysterectomy. So 3 months of zero hormones, 3 months of night sweats, mood swings, body that felt foreign to me, all the things. And my joke at the time was that I was having all the hormonal side effects of pregnancy mixed with postpartum depression, except for that I was moving out of fertility, not into it. And so then my hysterectomy was a success. My 6-week recovery went amazingly well. I was probably my own best rehab patient. My surgeon handed me a script for an estrogen patch and sent me on my way. And then came the weight gain, and I could no longer work out the way I used to. My body still felt foreign. Like it was betraying me all over again, especially my shoulder, my right shoulder. Flexing my elbow hurt, lifting my arm overhead. That felt wrong. Holding weights on that side felt off, and it started interfering with my ability to work as a registered massage therapist. And at the same time, I was freaking exhausted from not sleeping. But wait, there's more. My autoimmune condition, which I'd fought so hard to get into remission and had been stable for years, came roaring back. And looking back at that, it was probably more like the hormonal roller coaster of my hormones going offline and then boop, coming back online that kind of really sent it off in a new direction. It took time and help with my private physician, Dr. Teresa Wood, who works here in Whistler, to work with me. So my autoimmune condition makes me a bit of a complicated mess, but together
what is
we
that
worked
specifically?
Oh, I have something, hidradenitis suppurativa. Have you heard of it?
I don't know what that is.
It's an autoinflammatory, hormone-triggered skin condition that's incredibly painful, and it can be debilitating physically, mentally. Go Google it. Don't Google it. It's really rough. It's rough. But together, Dr. Wood and I worked through, and you need a doctor that was going to work with you. Worked through what fresh hell was actually going on in my body. And at the same time, being the kind of person I am, I studied, I researched, I devoured research papers and studies. I read books. I listened to podcasts like this one. This is one of the first podcasts that I found. And Dr. Stacey Sims was the Next Level was the first book I found. And I made this my new obsession. Because here I was a massage therapist, as you know, 25 years, who works with bodies every day, who thought I knew what was happening. And I got freaking blindsided by a cranky shoulder, brain fog, emotional chaos, and body that like I no longer recognize. So when I say I get it, I mean I really get it.
What were the most meaningful things that you did to get back on your feet from all this?
I had to hormones.
Okay.
Hormones.
Yeah.
I had to radically take a look at what my workout regimen and my fitness regimen was. I really had to do that. I also had to. I actually went on a GLP-1 for a little while. Believe it or not, GLP-1's an inflammation. Boom. Small dose of that helped with my inflammation and my autoimmune disorder. And I know that that's a tricky topic. We don't have to really go into it because there's that whole everything. But that really freaking helped me. Eccentric loading of my tendon, rehab, mobility, rest. Even though I felt guilty about it, rest. I think those are the biggest things that really had to self-massage. Did I mention mobility?
Yeah.
Like
We'll talk about all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still on the GLP-1? You used the past tense, so I was wondering if you were still
Yeah, I used it to. I would use it again if my autoimmune disorder comes back out of remission. Usually it's because it's related hormonally. I used it to come out of remission because and believe it or not, I also had to use that with an injectable anti-inflammatory and a 30-day round of antibiotics. Oh, wow. And an SSRI, because hello, anxiety and sleep, boom, inflammation. So I just had this melange of pharmaceuticals. But now, thankfully, fingers crossed, I'm back in remission. And I won't have to go through surgery, which is a 6-week, pretty debilitating recovery from surgery for that stuff.
What would the surgery be?
Well, TMI, it's a de-hooding. So have you ever had a zit on the inside of your nose?
Yes.
Okay. So imagine that level of pain. You know, you're like, you can feel it, it, and it's kind of just under the skin, and you're like, oh, and it kind of like messes a bit with your day, but they're pretty temporary. They come and go, and usually they're, not around, but this is in your underarms and in your groin area. And they build tunnels. Like, I could go real into this, but basically de-hooding is you take and you uncover all of that, and you basically have to build your skin from the inside out. Yeah.
Okay.
And
all right. The more you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No cycling. No, I can't ride my bike. I can't wear pants. Yep. Hi guys. It's real up close and personal TMI talk with Tara Findlay today.
Yeah, well, that's why we're here. It's just so, like, you're so aware and athletic and trained. It just, when I hear stories like yours and all the education and advocacy you have done for yourself, I'm always sitting there thinking, how many women have just slipped through the cracks of the whole system, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's why I do what I do, because it's why you do what you do, because it's just, and I don't know about you, but once you ever feel like, oh, it's saturated, like, oh, we're pretty saturated here. Like, all my timeline is gardening and perimenopause and F the patriarchy. And then all of a sudden.
And you think everybody knows all the things, and they don't. They don't. Your silo does, but you step 1 foot outside of it. And like, even some of my best friends are like, really? And I'm like, what world do you live in? I'll say something, and they
do you even know me? Do you not hear me talk about this stuff? I won't shut up about it. But the thing is that there's always going to be women that are going through this, right? Every single human born with ovaries will go through perimenopause and menopause. So, just wait a few years. There's a whole other batch of us coming up. It's like consecutive gardening. So
in your professional experience and personal estimation and all the things you've read, and I know that you're familiar with Dr. Vonda Wright's work, and I've had her on the show, like, what happens? Why do so many active women in their 40s suddenly find themselves, and boy, I see them in my community, dealing with things like frozen shoulder, glute pain, plantar fasciitis is another big one, all the nagging itises and injuries that don't seem to respond to what used to work.
Yeah. And this is an ongoing evolution of me learning with my patients and learning with my own body. And like, as much of it is a pain in the ass to go through physical pain as a massage therapist, most of us will get super nerdy about it. And by healing ourselves, we uncover a whole way of helping our patients with how it worked for us. So first off, perimenopause is a sneaky bitch. Pardon my French.
That's
what I feel
We're
like.
fluent.
But women in midlife may wake up one day and find that their usual training routines suddenly outpace their body's capacity to repair.
That's a good way to put it.
And there's a lot of reasons why this can happen. But, and some of it's age related. You're just getting old. But a lot of them can be traced back to the hormonal changes of perimenopause. And I find, in my humble opinion, that it's usually a combination of three things. The first one is that hormone changes alter tissue structure. In particular, we talk collagen. Estrogen declines, we lose collagen. Collagen helps maintain this elasticity and resilience of our muscles, tendons, ligaments, and joints. Less collagen, stiffer tissues, and greater vulnerability to injury. At the same time, estrogen is one of our body's natural lubricants. It keeps us moist and juicy. It's like a watermelon. As levels drop, joints become stiffer and less forgiving. 2, we have a pro-inflammatory shift happening. Estrogen regulates cytokines, which are chemical messengers involved in inflammation. Sleep also plays a major role in regulating cytokines. And we all know sleep can become a hot mess during perimenopause and menopause. And the result is this more inflammatory environment in the body. And I'll relate it back to my autoimmune disorder, which is a proliferative inflammatory autoimmune disorder. So we have more inflammatory environment in the body, a lower pain threshold, and an increased risk of inflammatory conditions like adhesive capsulitis, so frozen shoulder, right? And then, but wait, there's more. Number 3 is recovery and tissue capacity decline. That can be age-related and estrogen-related. Our tendons don't repair as efficiently as they once did. The tenocyte, if you can learn one word today, it's tenocytes. The cells responsible for tendon repair take longer to heal and have a lower tolerance for load. And at the same time, due to either age or estrogen, we get this muscle loss, which we call sarcopenia, which can reduce strength and support around our joints and our tendons. So loads that used to be well tolerated may suddenly become too much. So when a 45-year-old woman develops frozen shoulder or glute pain or plantar fasciitis or these nagging overuse injuries that aren't responding to the usual treatments, it may not be actually an overuse problem. It may be a capacity and recovery problem. That's what I'm seeing. So it's helpful to look at our healing through a perimenopause-informed lens and understand that the rules for us may have changed and our expectations for recovery timelines might need to shift along with them.
Yeah, I like that framing because it's not necessarily saying you have to pull back on what you do as much as give more to the recovery of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think we need to pay more attention to that. It's like, it's old, you can't run anymore. We're not allowed to endurance run. Well, no. That's not the case. Yeah. We need running for our hearts, and we need to train, right? But yeah, I think we need to adapt and bring more flexibility into that, and less rigidity into it. And I think that's the real key, the secret sauce.
So let's talk, I want to talk about all the things. I know that you mentioned eccentrics and inflammation and all the things.
Yeah.
Let's talk through your lens. What can massage do here? Like, what role is your practice doing for a woman who's coming in and telling you, I am falling apart. I have like this tendon, like hamstring tendinopathy will not go away, or Achilles tendon. Like what do you do to help her out?
Yes. Okay. So massage, I think massage now preaching to the converted. Massage, I think, is an incredibly valuable tool during perimenopause. And just to touch on this really cool study that was released in British Columbia in 2024, fall 2024, they surveyed over 2,100 women across 49 different consensus areas, measuring 500 different variables, and they came up with 5 recommendations. So what I do and why I do covers a lot of those recommendations. But the cool thing by far that I found as an RMT was that perimenopause women seek out a BC registered massage therapist more than any other healthcare practitioner to help them, by a large margin, to help them manage their symptoms, to help them manage their perimenopause symptoms. So why is that? And I will tell you.
Tell us.
I think it's
some ideas.
I think it's because we support mobility and relaxation and recovery. And massage can help manage the sensation of muscle tightness, and a lot of our techniques can temporarily reduce pain sensitivity, and we can help with like lower stress and anxiety and relieve aches and joint pain. We can help improve sleep quality. Skilled RMTs also can support rehabilitation, our work ergonomics, our sleep positioning, our movement strategies, and help us modify our activities. When we work through a perimenopause-informed lens, we can recognize symptom clusters that might otherwise be missed by our siloed healthcare system. And we can ask better questions. We can educate our patients about the musculoskeletal system or syndrome of menopause. We can adapt our treatments plans and, more importantly, our patients' expectations around their healing timelines for things like that pesky gluteal tendinopathy. We can help build their healthcare team through interdisciplinary collaboration. We can connect them with appropriate practitioners. We can validate their experiences, which is huge, and we can help them advocate for themselves. We do something unique in healthcare. We offer time-rich validating care in a healthcare system where appointments feel rushed. We spend 60 to 90 minutes with a patient, and that kind of care can build body awareness and agency and trust. And often the response I hear isn't just, oh, my shoulder or my hip feels better. That's it. Great. Thanks. That's it. I hear, thanks for listening. And, finally, someone who gets me. That's what I hear. That's why I do what I do. And I think that's what massage can do. We can talk about what massage can't do if you want, but that's what massage can do.
Well, before we do that, I want to underline a couple of things because, we do know from all of the literature that stress, cortisol, all of that makes everything menopause transition worse. That's why cognitive behavioral therapy is actually a validated therapy for menopause symptoms because of what you're talking about. So when you are lying on a table and somebody has their hands on you and is actively relaxing you while also listening to you and all of the things that you're talking about, that's got to bring up that parasympathetic tone, right? And bring down that stress and just pave the road. For a better, smoother.
I think we've become used to physiotherapy and that massage is rehab. And yes, it is. But what if relaxation, what if increasing our parasympathetic activity, what if that was rehab? What if we looked at that as therapeutic? What if the relaxation massage was therapeutic? And don't get me wrong, if you don't touch my glutes deep enough, I'm gonna want you to, I want a therapeutic massage. But what if that touch also was what if we could change our brains to realize that the nap that you're taking is just as important as the lifting heavy shit that you do.
Yep.
It's just as important.
Absolutely. I didn't ask this before, what style type of massage do you practice?
So I'm not a techniques therapist, which a lot of massage therapists, I'm a massage therapist. So a lot of massage therapists will be like, yes, so I'm not one of those people that will build my entire identity around a style or a technique. However, I am huge on mobility, and I do a lot of passive and active mobility with my patients, depending on what they're looking for. I love active release. However, I find a lot of my patients just want to passive and be there and receive and not have to do a lot of work. So I do a lot of mobilizing with them. And I think the best way to explain what I do is I'm looking for ways that the body can find ease, and I show the body how ease can happen so that the body can remind itself. Sometimes I feel like pain patterns are like I don't know if you're a mountain biker, but like you go through a trail in the springtime and it's super overgrown, but then the more people that go through it, it automatically starts pruning itself. So when you have a pain sensation, you've all of a sudden quickly built this pathway through. And massage and learning how to move pain-free helps grow that over, so it's not a constant pain association. Does that make sense?
It does make perfect sense. Yeah.
Okay, good. So that's what I think that I teach. It's not what I think. I know that that's what I do, is I help my patients feel movements in their body that aren't painful, so that when they go and do them actively, they can start to grow that pathway back over, so it's not a pain pathway anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not as sensitized.
Yep, that makes perfect sense. Because at the end of the day, pain originates from the brain. I've done entire shows on that too.
It's so many. Like, how much of perimenopause originates from the brain?
All of it. Conversations
it's all in your head.
with the ovaries. Well, yeah, your brain is up there.
And I'm not meaning you're faking it. I don't mean you're
no,
faking
totally.
it. I just mean
I know.
your brain. It's in your brain.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So I do want to talk, because I am a huge fan of eccentric loading for all things. Because like connective tissue loves load, right? I mean, so talk a little bit about the benefit, tell people what we mean by eccentric loading, and then what the benefits of it are. Okay.
So if you're not watching this, which most of us listen to this
most
podcast
people aren't,
and
some
do something
do,
else.
Yeah.
So tendons need mechanical load in order to heal and strengthen. We need to load our tendon in order for it to know how to strengthen. And one of the most effective ways to stimulate that process is through eccentric loading. And that's the phase of a movement where the muscle is lengthening under tension. And the easiest way to feel eccentric loading is with resistant bands. So one of the most simplest movements that I can describe on a podcast would be the bicep curl. So bending your elbow and moving your arm up towards your shoulder, right? So that's the concentric form of that. So the biceps shortens, right? When you bring the arm up, the hand up to the shoulder, right? So if imagine you're using a resistant band, you're shortening the muscle. That's concentric. Constriction, concentric, short, contraction, short. Okay. Eccentric is elongating. So what you're going to do is then you're going to take the long way home, meaning you're going to just basically slowly control releasing that arm back. But because you're using a resistant band, you're still loading the muscle. So that provides this stimulus, right? And it's one of the most valuable tools for helping tendons tolerate load again and gradually return to full function. And if I may, one of the ways I help improve compliance with this is by introducing a concept of a movement snack. And if you can't see me, you won't be able to see the fact that I hold this banana up here. So movement snacks are small doses of movement, eccentric exercises included, that can be done in the time it takes to eat a banana. So instead of giving my patients a 45-minute rehab routine, I help them build robust snackle boxes of movement options. Some that can be done in the wild, some that don't need equipment. So you can like use whatever is around you. You don't have to get down on the floor. You can use a bench, a stair, a chair, your desk, or a rock, or anything. Other snacks might require equipment like resistant bands or foam rollers or massage balls, and others might require you to get on the floor or take your shoes off. So the key is habit stacking. For example, I keep my resistant bands wrapped around my stair banister in sight, in mind. So I'll rip off a set of 10 while I'm waiting for my coffee to brew, or 2 sets of 10 watching a TV show or chatting with my son in the kitchen. I'll tie ankle mobility to brushing my teeth. A little bit TMI, but we've already broached topics. Often my early morning pee is done naked. So it's a great time to moisturize my bare legs. Now, that's not a mobility snack, but these are how you stack your habits, right? I've been sitting at my desk too long. I have a few go-to moves. I have a few go-to moves that I do between patients. And so this is how you start to basically help that cranky tendon not be cranky anymore.
Yeah, I love everything about that. And I really think that because one of the barriers to PT is time and boredom. People are just like, oh,
God,
I've got to do that thing.
Boring.
I've got to do. Yeah, like there's just, it's just so, it's not a small obstacle to it. And I have one of those Thera bars, like for my like I had epicondylitis one time, and the eccentric, of a contraction of resisting the bar after you twist it just keeps my forearms and my elbows and all that joint so healthy. But I just keep it on my desk, so I just do it. Like when I'm just thinking or whatever, I'm just doing it sort of prehab wise, just doing it.
Exactly.
And the same thing, if you're on the steps, you can just stand on one leg and sort of drop your heel slowly, right? And just weave it into your day, as opposed to being like, oh my God, when am I going to do those 30 exercise, all the things that people are just so resistant to, and then just don't do anything.
With my patients, I'm like, okay, so you drive a lot, right? You commute a lot? Yeah, great. So when you get out of your car, put your foot up on your tire and do this move quickly, before, after you get out of the car.
I do that.
When you're in your Zoom meeting, and your camera's not on, you can do some little exercises when trying to help my patients. That's a game for me, trying to help my patients build their box, so that their snackle box, so that they can really tap into those. And then once they start getting into the habit of doing them more regularly and realizing that they feel good afterwards, that's the reward center, right? And they start doing them more often and being consistent just because it feels better.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. So I know you also have a concept of red, yellow, green zones. What is that about? Yes.
And they're not mine. I did not come up with them, so I can't take credit for them. But Thanks. They are, but it is a concept out there. And one of the things to understand is that tendon pain specifically doesn't always show up right away. Sometimes symptoms don't appear until 24 to 48 hours after activity, which is why it's helpful to progress slowly at first and pay attention to how your body responds over the next couple days. You have your green zone, like a green light, yellow light, red light. Green zone is where you want to spend when you're rehabbing and when you're doing your mobility and stuff like that. That's where you want to spend most of your time. The pain stays around a 2 to 3 out of 10 during exercise, so it's really nominal. There's no loss of range of motion. There's no loss of strength afterwards. Any discomfort that you have is normally in the muscle belly, not in the tendon, but it settles between 2 and 24 hours max. Like, sleep isn't affected any more than your usual sleep hijinks. You're back to normal baseline within 24 hours. Okay, this is if you're in the green zone when you're doing an exercise, it's safe to continue, gradually progress your exercises, add load, add weight, add time under tension, add reps, add sets, just go to town. Okay, yellow zone is the caution zone. And it's not that you don't want to be here. It's just that you really need to practice more awareness. It's moderate pain activity, about 4 to 6 out of 10. Soreness can last 24 to 48 hours, but not longer than that. And in this case, you want to maintain or modify what you're doing take a step back, reassess rather than continuing to build and ramp things up. And if you've moved from, say, you might be able to give me a good example, but say from gravity assisted or reduced gravity assisted exercises to non-gravity assisted exercises. So say, for example, clamshell might be a nice one. A lot of people do clamshell on their side. Clamshell with gravity assist, you'd be on your back and you open your knees like a book, and then you close them and you open your knees like a book. So, move from that to move to your side, right? That would be like a progression. If you start developing pain, you might need to temporarily back off. But if you're working in this zone and you want to move through the zone like a plateau, consider doing those yellow zone ones earlier in your workout when you're less fatigued. Okay. Red zone is your body's way of saying you've likely pissed off the injury. Which is okay. It's good to know. Knowledge is power. It's 7 out of 10 pain or higher. Pain is sharp or stabbing. Symptoms last longer than 48 hours and your sleep is disrupted. Ruh-roh. So at this point, stop. Stop the activity, reassess before continuing. And the goal, because I don't know if you've had epicondylitis. The goal isn't to avoid pain completely, right? The goal is to help exercise gradually shift towards the green zone. So sometimes your tendon is going to be a little cranky when you're doing it, mildly cranky, just a mild crank. But everything needs to shift towards the green zone. So healing can happen while you're still building strength and capacity. Hope that's helpful.
It is very helpful, and that's a great spectrum for when you're coming back from an injury or rehabbing something. I also think it's great just to have in your head when you're going about your daily activities, because sometimes you start your run, and you start something, you're like, this thing feels a little niggly or this or whatever, and then in 5 minutes later you forgot it ever was bothering you, right? You warm up and it's fine, and I would consider that green. But if something continues at like that low level, like it's not getting worse, but it's not getting better, like that's a yellow. That's something to pay attention to. I think that if you always have that in your head, it can just sort of help you navigate not getting injured as well.
Yeah. It's like catch it before it gets too red, but catch it before it becomes an injury, right? And I'll stop and I don't normally stop in my run, but I have 5 minutes at the beginning of like, come on, girl, like what's going, how's the body today? And I might do some hip mobility. I might roll through my ankles a little bit more. All that warm up that you did as a kid that was like eye-rollingly boring, I now fully embrace. I have to. I feel like a vintage car. Like Mama needs to warm up in the morning.
Let it run a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Let's go back and talk a bit about frozen shoulder, because it is such a huge issue for women in this population. I hear a lot about it, and it is I feel like it's such a black box of an injury, because you hear all this stuff like, it might last a year or two, or it's in the freezing stage or in the thawing stage. What have you learned in your practice and in your studies about this condition in particular?
So of all the joints in the human body, I am the nerdiest about the shoulder. I've been studying the shoulder since I was in massage therapy school in 1995. And when I was in my 20s, we used to call frozen shoulder the 50-year-old woman syndrome. And in my 20s, I thought that was kind of funny and quirky enough to remember, but definitely in my 20s, not anything that I was going to dwell on. But now I'm like, we've been talking about that for a long time. And if you look at all the studies, if you pair them up, and I've done this in my course, the etiology is unclear, inconsistent findings, like we still don't know. Even though more women than men get it, we still don't know what's causing it. You're just like, come on, guys, really? Okay. So, but here's the thing is that frozen shoulder is so subtle when it comes on, then it's easy. Women brush it off. It starts with like, I must have slept wrong because my shoulder's kind of sore. But then these little things become surprisingly difficult, like reaching behind your back to do up your bra, putting on deodorant, brushing your hair, reaching to the back seat of the car. We have often this is the important one. There's no history of injury. Okay. So this is one of the big clues, is that you didn't do anything, okay, to bring this on. Okay. And another hallmark sign is that it gets worse at night. And women, because we are so like, I don't have time for this. We unconsciously start favoring that arm and avoiding movements that aggravate it. So we'll just start doing stuff with our other hand. And what's happening underneath is that the joint capsule becomes super inflamed, okay? And over time, it thickens and tightens and then shortens. And this is why the shoulder gradually loses range of motion and becomes incredibly painful, because the shoulder joint is rich in both nerve endings and estrogen receptors, so that when the capsule becomes inflamed, those nerve endings become sensitized. And so even simple, like the cat breathes on it and you're like, it can create sharp pain because you're stretching already irritated tissues, right? And one of the biggest misconceptions is that frozen shoulder is a shoulder problem. Yes, it's in your shoulder joint. We tend to lump it into things like tendinopathies and tendinitis or overuse injuries, but it's systemic. It's associated with conditions like diabetes and thyroid disorders and breast cancer treatment. It's associated with inflammation and arthralgia, arth meaning joint, algia meaning pain. And we're seeing actually more discussion around the role of systemic inflammation and arthralgia during perimenopause. In fact, Dr. Vonda Wright, as you know, wrote that paper, she co-wrote that paper, the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause. And I believe that she in the future will have some interesting emerging research between systemic inflammation, perimenopause, and conditions like fibromyalgia. And do you know Dr. Jocelyn Wittstein? I think it's Wittstein, not Wittstein. She has published research looking at frozen shoulder and hormone therapy. I don't know if you've heard about her studies coming out, but she came really close to showing that HRT may reduce the incidence of frozen shoulder. But her cohort was too small to reach statistical significance. However, it paved the way for a larger study that she has coming out soon. And
I saw her posters on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what those results show. But my takeaway is that if you're a woman in your 40s or 50s with a gradually stiffening, increasingly painful shoulder, get thee to a doctor. Like, especially if you have no obvious injury. Like, don't assume you're just getting older or slept funny, and do not brush this off. Do not let a medical professional brush this off to you. You need to get into the therapy right away.
Outstanding. No, it is outstanding, because I have nothing else to add to that. I 100% agree. When we talked previously, you had talked about, which is hard to do in practice, especially if you have a full-time job, but this, like, when you're talking about giving more rest and more recovery, and that mismatch that maybe sometimes happens between your outpacing your body's ability to recover from what you're doing, there's a thought process about, instead of doing a 5 or 7 day progression in your workout, that you spread that out to like 10 days, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, your training plan isn't just, and I think that there's real wisdom, and I wish we could give women more examples of that, because I do think there's something there that more women could benefit from.
Okay. Yes. And so, the TLDR on this is listen to your body. That's it. That's the post. But on a more serious note, I need more downtime and active recovery between training days. Not always, but in this phase of life, things are predictably unpredictable. So rigid training splits no longer work for me, but flexibility around those splits absolutely does. And you're right. The last time we spoke, I was taking a programmed 5-day split and stretching it across 10 to 15 days. However, things have evolved, and these days I do a 3 to 4 day split. I find it works better for me. It looks like upper full, lower full, or upper lower full core. And again, this is not rigid, but I just find, because I'm spreading it out, I kind of want to cover more compound movements. And so that's what it looks like. So what does that look like? It typically looks like, for me, 30 minutes. And this is not a recipe. I'm not giving anybody a recipe that you have to do. Please.
Yeah.
30 minutes of upper body, 20 to 30 minutes of lower body, and then 20 to 30 minute full body sessions or active recovery like yoga or Pilates or core or something like that. And then I sprinkle in this generous serving of walking, especially hills, a dash of running, which is a run walk for me. I'm always training for the zombie apocalypse. Liberal amounts of recreational activities that I measure with my heart and for joy, and then a lot of mobility, rehab, and attention to my NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And that's all the movement that happens outside, like gardening and dancing and walking with your friends and rolling around on your backyard lawn with your yogi friends, like all of that stuff. But without using it as an excuse, I do a daily check-in and ask what my body needs based on the last few days and the next few days coming up. And for me, I need to consider how my grip strength will hold up for clinic days, and I need to monitor my cranky shoulder, which actually is much better. And my work schedule matters, and how much I'm carrying matters. And I mean that metaphorically and physically. So if I'm not feeling 100% about a planned workout, these are the questions I ask myself. How is my sleep? Did I actually sleep? What does my work week look like and where am I in it? Am I stressed? How's my immune system? Have I been doing a bunch of recreational activities like mountain biking or snowboarding or paddling? Do I have something intense coming up? Maybe I just need a longer warm up. How's my body feeling since last workout? One of my mentors, Dr. Paul Attila, he's a chiropractor from my Fernie, so BC Rocky Mountain days. He rode across the Atlantic single-handedly. Okay, so he's a real high-end athlete. Okay, he once said to me while I was training for my first half marathon, Tara, it's better to go into an event slightly undertrained than overtrained. And I think about that a lot. And honestly, it helps me feel completely justified in taking more rest days when my body is asking for them. So the TLDR, listen to your body. Like, pay attention to the cues, the subtle cues, the not so subtle cues. Make sure you pay attention to those subtle cues before the not so subtle cues knock you over with an injury.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to sort of give women that just a little bit of a framework of how to think about all of this, everything we've talked about. Like, if you're an active woman dealing with whatever it is, a nagging pain here or there, or some injury that just keeps coming back. I mean, I think there is a bit of a checklist that we've given them, like, where are you in the menopause transition? Have you had inflammation checked? Have you had your blood work done to see if your thyroid or anything is going on? Mm-hmm. I always say, take stock. And then what is your schedule? Are you giving yourself that recovery? What do you think about like how a woman can think about this? Yeah,
absolutely. I've got 10 things. Screen for perimenopause if you haven't already, right? Screen for perimenopause if you haven't already. Celine, they have a great symptom checklist. Start tracking what's showing up. Stay curious, ask questions, connect the dots. Don't assume every ache, pain, or injury is just aging. You're just going to have to deal with it. Listen to your body and consider changing up your routine. So more isn't always better. Sometimes the answer is more rest, more recovery, and strategic training. Learn your green, yellow, and red zones. And I mean that in life. It's super helpful, though, when knowing when to increase your load and when you're at risk of overloading. Prioritize yourself. Recovery is training. Sleep is training. Fueling is training. Embrace mobility, extended warm-ups, rehab, active recovery. Your future self will thank you. Stack those habits. Build yourself a mobility snack box. A few minutes here and there really start to add up. It's like compound interest, okay? Learn isometric and eccentric, mostly eccentric loading for your cranky bits, and get super nerdy about it. Build your collaborative care team, and one that works for you and takes your concerns seriously. Become a self-advocating badass. And because I'm an RMT, consider seeing a physio or massage therapist. Bonus points if they treat through a perimenopause-informed lens. That's what I got.
I love it. I appreciate your wisdom. I appreciate everything you have been through to get here.
Oh my gosh.
And you know, I know. But respect to that, and respect to using it for the greater good of the people who you serve.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really, one of the reasons why my colleague and I wrote this course was because she also went through a perimenopause, like her menopause journey was complicated like mine. I'll let her tell her story. But both of us were like, holy crap, like if we're going through this, imagine what our patients are going through. Can you imagine not knowing any of this stuff and just being blindsided with like, I feel like I am falling apart and I don't even know this body or can trust it anymore, and she and I have, as massage therapists, feel like now, because we treat through this perimenopause-informed lens, we can actually hand somebody a metaphorical flashlight and then walk beside them while we're trying to figure this stuff up for together. And that's a hell of a lot better than a pamphlet and a shrug, if you ask me.
It's a great mic drop moment, I think. So I appreciate your... It always is. I appreciate your time and your wisdom. And thanks so much, Tara. That was really great.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Well, that is our show. Come on back next week when I sit down with fan favorite menopause specialist and reproductive endocrinologist, Dr. Carla DiGirolamo. And we sit down and we talk about the name change from PCOS to PMOS and exactly how the endocrine disorder shows up in midlife and the menopause transition, and how some women actually find out that they do have it for the first time in the menopause transition. I learned a lot, and I'm sure you will too. So come on back for that one. And until then, as always, stay feisty. You have been listening to Hit Play Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active performance-minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. This show is edited and produced by the most amazing Carrie Barrett and the other talented, strong women at Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause, and please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag @FeistyMenopause. And please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.